Today's guest is the phenomenal trumpeter and composer Joshua Bruneau. Born in Vermont, Josh's musical journey began with a love for classical music before discovering the trumpet in the transformative world of jazz. Mentored by legends like Nat Reeves and Steve Davis at the Jackie McLean Institute, he's also graced iconic stages like Smokin' Smalls in New York City and performed alongside greats such as Curtis Fuller, Harold Mabern, and Eric Alexander. His latest album is Saying Something. So Josh continues to push boundaries and inspire through his artistry. So join us as we explore his journey, influences, and vision for the future. So Josh, good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Abe. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we were just we were just talking before we started hitting record, and you said the you have a good story about how you got into the trumpet. I mean, you've made a name for yourself as one of the standout trumpeters in New York. So talk to me about what drew you to the trumpet in the first place, and let's hear
It's
about it.
it's a really funny story, Abe, actually. So when I was a kid, I my 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 family wasn't really musical per se, but I'm really close with my grandparents. My grandparents basically raised me, and my mom was an only single mom. I never knew my dad, and my grandparents had an old piano in their basement. So when I was a little kid, I was just always in the basement banging on the piano, trying to work something out. I was just always drawn to music. And then as I got older, every year we would go to like Fourth of July parade, and there was this fife and drum corps that would play. So I got really into the snare drum. So I asked my grandfather to buy me a little practice pad. So he got me a little practice pad, and I got some sticks, and I was practicing, doing my rudiments and all of that. And then fifth grade came around. I was 9 or 10, and my grandfather's brother, who was about 10 years older than him, he played the trumpet, and he was also a Catholic priest, and he was in the Merchant Marine during World War II. His name was Donald Bruneau, and so he played trumpet. And he passed away when I was about 6 years old. So I remember one day I came home from school, and they gave us a little form to fill out to pick your instrument if you wanted to play an instrument. So I came home and I told my grandfather I wanted to play drums. And he looked at me like I had three heads. He said, "I'm not renting you any drums. I don't want to hear you beat on the drums all day. Your uncle played the trumpet. I got that trumpet over there. You're going to play that thing." So thank God he did. And the rest is history. I picked the trumpet, and I was not good at all at first.
Was that the was the
Terrible.
trump was the trumpet the one in that he had? Was that the one you started on, or you had
Yeah, yep. I still have it. Yep, I
wow.
do. It was a Holton. He was a really big Maynard Ferguson guy. So he had a Holton trumpet, intermediate model trumpet, and that's the first trumpet that I played.
Wow. Um, you know,
Yep.
I always feel, and like I had mentioned, you definitely have, established yourself as one of the standout players. I kind of feel in order to get to that place, you have to have a combination like um the technical precision and the emotional depth, and that creates the artist as themselves. So like uh who were you like checking out that shaped the way you look at the world of jazz and the trumpet and the way you play? Like
Well, man, I think, see, the trumpet, the nature of the instrument, I think, is you have to have a certain personality because the trumpet's a very standout instrument. They talk about the trumpet in the Bible. You know what I mean? I mean, so like you have to have up the right personality to play. You got to be, outgoing. You got to put yourself out there. You got to be willing to be vulnerable and make some mistakes. And that's really what I was drawn to about the trumpet because I'm an outgoing guy. I'm kind of loud and boisterous when I get in a group of people, and my personality comes out through the horn, and it's a way for me to access something that maybe I can't access without the horn in my hand. So it's a way for me to express some things that I might not be able to through the medium of language, words, But I saw a video of Louis Armstrong when I was a little kid, and that really, 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 really like cemented the fact that okay, this is what I want to do. Like that is, I mean, and then I heard Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker not too long after that. My grandfather was super hip, man. He's a big music fan. He's not a player, but he's a super big fan. So the first two records he got me, I remember one year for Christmas, he bought me Kind of Blue and he bought me the quintet live at Massey Hall with Dizzy and Bird and Bud Powell and Charles Mingus and Max Roach. And that record right there blew my mind.
Yeah, you
And it
really
was
got
all over.
exposed to some of the best music early on.
I sure did. Yeah, I was lucky.
And you're from Vermont, and now you're in New York City. I think New York City and Vermont are relatively different. Most people would say.
Very
Um,
different. Yes.
how has the city changed your approach, if at all, or inspired you? Can you talk a little bit
Oh
about New
man.
York because
Well,
people want to know
I
about.
mean, well, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Oh,
but
no, no, it's all
man,
good. Go ahead.
Vermont is it's a great place to grow up. It's really great. And I was the thing about where I grew up is I was really blessed with some amazing music teachers. And I went to public school. I didn't go to, my family doesn't have money or nothing like that. Like, so but the level of education that I got, music education,
Mhm.
was, man, the more I travel and the more I talk to people and we compare our upbringings and our educational experiences, the more and more I'm like, wow, I really, I had a few teachers. My first teacher in school was this guy named Matt Clancy, and he was an education major. He went to William Patterson, I think around the same time as Eric Alexander and Joe
Oh, wow.
Farnsworth and those guys. And so he moved to Vermont, and like he was the first guy to give me private lessons on the trumpet, and he was an incredible saxophonist. He played with he toured with a bunch of blues and jazz groups, and unfortunately he passed away when he was 37. He had a pulmonary embolism. I was in college, but the city, I mean, everybody who reaches a certain point in their life, I feel like you either want more or you're content. And I always wanted more. So I still want more. So the only logical step is to branch out. And Vermont is a small state. There's not many people there. There's not many things to do. There was places to play, and we were lucky because our teachers made that happen for us. And so did we. Like we just took the initiative on our own because we just needed to. We needed to play. We would
So
go to
you're able to
places
play
and
like
just,
some quartet,
oh,
trios,
man, I
like
had
those
friends.
opportunities were there in
Yeah, I mean,
Vermont for you.
I was so into music that I got my friends really into it. So like I had to train some cats up to play because Aebersolds are all good. And thank God for Jamie Aebersold. Thank God, because those things were a great resource. But it's not like playing with other people. And so we had a little community of guys that I still keep in touch with. Some of them still play and some of them not as much, but they're still, fans and they play every once in a while. But I had a really great group of friends that were really, really into it. And we were really serious about music. And it made a lot of difference because
Mm.
having that support system and having people around that you feel comfortable trying things with in terms of your music and your creativity is invaluable, especially when you're that age.
Yeah, so you took you had friends and you kind of got them into it, and then you
I was
started
like,
to.
I would give them records. I was like, man, check this out. I would give my buddy Chris Markley, man, go listen to Billy Higgins on Eastern Rebellion, please. And then next week we'd come back and we try, and he got it. I was
Do
like,
you
okay, so there's
do you
the
remember your
formula.
first jazz gig, where it was, what you played?
My first jazz gig was on drums, believe it or not, at this place in Burlington, Vermont called the Penny Cluse Cafe. I think I was maybe 11 or 12, something like that.
Oh, wow, you were
I think we
young.
got paid $7 a piece. Not much has changed since then.
I'd be like seven, I'd be like, when I started out playing in New York, seven. You were
Yeah,
lucky if you got
seven's a
seven.
lot, right?
Yeah. No, but that's great. You got those experience. What about trumpet, playing trumpet on your first jazz
Oh,
gig?
sheesh. Man, my first jazz gig on trumpet. That's a good one. I, so there was another thing too where I grew up. We had two community bands. It was like older, retired people that would get together on Tuesday nights, and just we'd play through Sousa marches and
Like concert
things.
bands, concert
Yeah,
band.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I did that every week, and there was another. It was a big band. It was all, man. They were, I think, the youngest besides me and my friend Ben Smeltzers, great trombone player. He lives in Sweden now. He's a physicist, smart dude, man. Musicians are geniuses. Harold Mabern always used to say that too. Musicians are
I
geniuses.
heard he used to
But so
say that
we
he's like we can do everything they can, but they can't do everything, something like that, you know?
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
he's right too. He's right, man. I mean, I'm telling you, I've met every musician I've ever met is a genius in their own way.
Mm.
Every single one of them. And so there was this band called Green Mountain Swing. Okay, so me and my friend Ben Smeltzer, we would get together every Sunday night with this band. I think that might have been one of my first professional engagements. So we started to travel. Like I was traveling for gigs when I was maybe 12, 13 with this local swing dance band. We played, you know, Duke Ellington and Count Basie and Glenn Miller and Benny Goodman and all types of stuff. And I was really into big band music too because my grandfather was.
Do you guys play
So
Stan Kenton stuff at all?
yeah, we played some Stan Kenton. We played all of that stuff. Artie Shaw, Begin to Begin, and all of that stuff, man. I
Dang.
was it was really great for me in a bunch of ways because number one, I got to sit in a section and sight read music. And man, I'll tell you what, that you could put a piece of music upside down in front of me and I could sight read it like that, no mistakes. Just because we did it every week and it was
Yeah.
really good practice and I got to build my repertoire. I would nowadays I hear a song or I hear somebody, I'm listening to a record and I hear somebody quote a song. Like, man, that thing sounds so familiar. And it goes back and man, oh my God, that is Jersey Bounce.
Yeah.
Benny Goodman tune, right? You know what I mean? So it's like those types of things were really important in my formative years for what was to come, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like you grew up, I like to ask some people sometimes, like, if you could change one thing about, your musical upbringing or something, do you think you would change anything? Or it sounds to me like, you wouldn't change a thing.
The only thing I would change is play more, practice more
Yeah,
if I
just,
could. That's
you
that's it.
you mind if I ask you about performing? Like, because I talk to a lot of jazz musicians and like, some people will just say there are no challenges, it's home. But I always kind of feel like it can be a challenging thing to do.
Yeah,
Do you find performing challenging in any situations? Uh, or
yeah,
what's the,
absolutely I do. I think performing performing to me is it it's another instrument. It's another thing that you need to practice and perfect, just like your horn or your guitar or your drums or whatever your medium is, because it's a nerve-wracking thing to get up in front of a bunch of strangers and expose your everything, your soul, your heart, and what if they don't like it? What if they laugh at me?
I always
All of
think
that
it's
stuff.
hard on some level, and I think anyone who says it's always easy is lying, you know?
No, they're definitely lying. And not only that, to program a set of music, like you got to get inside the head of your audience. A lot of people don't do that, and a lot of people don't consider who they're playing for,
Yeah,
which
pacing is
is
set.
which is
Pace.
bonkers to me because these people paying good money to come hear you play something that they're gonna like.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Do you feel like a lot of jazz musicians, like, I mean, people who are starting out, like, they're not so much aware of how to pace a set, and
I think, yeah, because that took me a long time
Mhm.
to learn, and it took me learning from Curtis Fuller and Harold Mabern and Joe Farnsworth and those types of guys about how to program a set of music. Because a lot of people don't think about stuff like that, and they don't necessarily teach you that in school. And that is one of the most important things because if you play the first song and the audience is sitting there like this, then what are you gonna do?
Mhm.
You gotta come up with something.
When you pick the first
That's
song you're gonna play on a gig, do you prefer to do something that's gonna like be a little harder, push you, or do you like to do something like, like, oh, okay, I'm comfortable with this? Like,
It
what,
all depends on your audience. It all depends on the venue.
well,
It
it's
all
like you're
depends on
playing
the
like with your band
audience.
at Smalls or something like,
I like to come out of the gates, hit hard, hit them
yeah,
over the head. First thing, get their attention. Then, if you get them like this, then you can do whatever you want, basically. But
yeah,
you gotta hook them. You gotta draw them in because you can't just assume that they're there and they're gonna like you just because they're there. Because there are so many great musicians, and people hear about Smalls and they just go. They don't care who's playing.
yeah,
So you can't just say, "Oh, well, they're gonna like it no matter what," because that might not be the case. And I want people to like what they hear.
yeah. No, you
I
bring a
want
good
people to
point. It sounds
leave.
like the first song is like such an important one that,
I think it is. I think people always remember the first song and the last song. They don't. Oh, the sandwich, the stuff in the meat in the sandwich, that's gravy. People always remember the first song and the last song.
yeah. No,
You know?
this is great. I love how you're being, just so honest about it and everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's just my experience.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, and that's you're in the city where there's no shortage of musicians or anything.
Right.
But imagine you're mentoring somebody who wants to like get into this business or move to New York. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a trumpeter, but what's something unconventional you might tell them that is going to help their journey, or a piece of advice that you wish you had gotten early on? Anything come to mind?
Um, yeah. S- Balancing hanging out and doing what you need to do for yourself. So making sure you get enough sleep, drinking enough water, all of that stuff. Because that the hang part is a very important part of the scene. It's really important that you do that. But, you can't get too far into that thing because then you start to take stuff away from what actually matters, which is the music and the
Yeah.
creativity and the artistry.
You're sleeping until 6 o'clock at night,
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, that's no way for anybody to live their life. Like during the pandemic, I was working at Amazon and I worked the graveyard shift, like 6 at night to 7 in the morning. And that was like, man, I wasn't even hanging out. You know what I mean? I was working. And
Yeah.
even that is tough to do. You got to be a special type of person to do that. And yeah, musicians live their lives at night. I understand that. But you need to get your rest too. And sometimes I would wear myself down trying to be everywhere. And you don't have to be everywhere all the time. New York ain't going anywhere. I know climate change is bad, but it ain't gonna break off and go into the ocean or nothing like that. So,
Yeah.
take
No,
your time. Take your time.
you make such a good point. But people don't think about the balance. So you're saying if you have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying don't hang out till 6 in the morning because that's important to do too.
Every now and then,
Every
or
once in a while, you got, I spent so many nights with me and Carlos Abadi and Roy Hargrove at Smalls till 6 in the morning. And me and Carlos would just sit next to Roy and just watch him play piano. That's it. He would just play tunes. And I learned so much like that from my brother Carlos and from Mr. Hargrove and all of it was important to be around all of that, you know.
yeah, the first time I took the bus down from Boston to go to New York and went to Smalls, Roy Hargrove just walked in and just started
Yeah.
playing with the band.
Yep.
This
Yep.
is like 2007 or something like that.
That's another thing that's really changed about the scene now because we've lost so many of our greats. We've lost our elders, a lot of them. And when I was coming up, when I was first starting to go to jam sessions in New York and things, you had to have your stuff together because you never know. I remember one night at Smoke, I was playing the late night set on a Friday night, and at the front table was Buster Williams, Jimmy Cobb, Lewis Hayes, and who else? One other person. Um, Somebody great, maybe Johnny O'Neill. And I was like, oh, now it's kind of like the Wild West a little bit because, I wasn't going to get up on stage in front of Jimmy Cobb and Lewis Hayes and, act a fool.
Yeah.
You had to have your shit together. Excuse my French, but you
No,
had,
it's all it's not a bad word.
you know,
Yeah, you're, yeah, it's a shame that maybe, people are passing but I think also the culture's changed too. People are, you have to kind of watch what you say and be more, I don't want to say sensitive in a sense, but,
yeah,
politically correct, let's say, just
yeah,
because the
yeah.
culture's gone,
I agree with you. Yep,
which
yep.
is the exact opposite of the jazz culture.
Right, right. Well, I mean, it's like for me personally, I knew that wherever I was playing, Roy might walk in. So I never wanted to get caught with my pants down, proverbially. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I always made sure that, I had my stuff together, and you can't have everything together. You always, oh man,
I was just
standing
talking to
on,
someone about this earlier. Like it's impossible to have like there's so many subgenres of the music and stuff, and there's so much there. It's impossible to have everything together. It's
yeah,
just
you know, I've been thinking about this a lot too. And the older you get and the more music that you are familiar with, let's say, okay, it's impossible to know every standard ever written, but luckily we have harmony and we can study harmony. And Western harmony is pretty much, like you take a guy like Cole Porter, he's always got a little trap in his songs. You know what I mean? On the bridge or somewhere in that tune, it's gonna go left
mhm.
somewhere. So if you do enough of that, I mean, how many times have you heard 251 in your life? Probably a million at this point, right?
Yeah,
So, okay, I don't know this tune, but if you play the melody and you give me one time through it, I got it.
yeah,
Just being familiar with the way that people use harmony. Western harmony, it's all 5/1 basically. You know what I mean? So like relative minor, all of that stuff. So you can hear your way through a tune. Just trust your ears. I wish I had trusted my ears a little bit more when I was younger.
yeah. And even if you don't necessarily understand exactly what's going on harmonically, you hear it. You just hear. You know what I
You
mean?
hear
Like,
it and then you do better next time. You go
yeah.
home and that's all you do for that week.
Like you may
And then
not
the
know
next time,
exactly what's going on, but you might be able to say, oh, okay, I know what this sounds like. But you know what I mean? Like in the
absolutely.
moment, you're like just saying, oh, I know what this is going to sound like. If, I mean,
You know what a half diminished chord sounds like. You know what that is. So if you know where you are in the tune, okay, well, we're here. You know, um, man, I was going to say something I forgot, but you can draw on those experience. It's like life. You go to the bank at 5 o'clock. Oh man, the line is long. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to go at 11 o'clock a.m. You
Mhm.
know, you don't
De-
make the same mistake twice, hopefully.
Definitely. No, no, Josh, this has been such an interesting conversation. It's a pleasure to sit and talk with you. Where can everybody find your social media and website and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Joshua Bruno. Instagram at jbruno. I don't have a website right now, actually, but
Social media, Jay Bruno on Instagram, you're saying though.
yep. And Facebook, Joshua Bruno. I have two pages. I have an artist page and a personal page, but
All right.
yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Hey, thank you. This has been a great little conversation. I appreciate it.
Definitely.